pertinent and issues that are necessary in the African American community. A lot of us
Okay.
are afraid to tackle certain issues, but every time we come up with a subject matter, you like, let's do it, let's do it. And so I just want to say I appreciate a brother who's not a coward, who's really a strong-minded brother. So having said that, let's talk this bad rap we're talking
Okay.
about.
I appreciate the words that so let's get into this. A bad rap. Now you said you wanted to talk about hip hop and the influence that it has on our people.
Mhm.
So first let me ask you this question. And why do you think hip hop has a such an influence on our people?
I think hip hop has a great influence on our people because culturally speaking, a lot of us we were raised with it, and it was clean. And for the most part, there's a lot of music now, hip hop, rap, whatever you want to call it, that's still conscious and it's music that we can learn. But then some of it is not so clean, and also our minds have been conditioned, a lot of us, and we feel like this is the norm, and it's really not.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking is because because if we look at other genres of music that is black music,
Mhm.
it hasn't had the influence on us. And I'm not just talking about us as a generation,
Right.
generation after generation, it hasn't had that influence on our people. And for some reason, and I'm thinking, my thinking on that is maybe because rap was created by young people.
Okay.
And so young people gravitate towards it because it was their own.
Mhm.
You know, when I was coming up and they had hip hop out there, they were saying, no, that's not gonna last or whatever. It was younger people stuff. It was street music that
Right, right.
younger people created. So I think they gravitate towards it more because even with R&B, um, it wasn't the younger
Okay.
generation's creation.
Mhm.
You know, you had mature people making songs and albums and things like that.
Mhm.
And kids may dance to it and they may like it because those were adults making music for them.
Right.
As opposed to hip hop, this was them making their music
Right.
that old people wasn't connected to or had little to do with.
Okay. Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I totally concur with that. When we talk about rap, people often say, "Well, what is that? What does that stand for?" But there's an acronym that we can look at in that word itself, which basically talks about the rhythm and then also poetry, because of
Right.
the way we flow with those words and the way we can syncopate those words with the beat, the different aspects of music. And it's like it's flowetry, it's where it's flowing in motion. And I think oftentimes when we look at this, we don't see the creativity in it because there's other things that have basically taken it hostage based upon the type of genre that you looking into, because there's different types of so-called hip-hop rap music. I mean,
Right.
I looked at least 27 different ones, and then some of them, like you mentioned earlier, some of them uh, they seem to be more prevalent, especially when you talk about some of the lyrics and
Yeah.
some of the things that people are engaging in.
Like explain what are some of the different types of rap
Well,
like?
you have the trap music, you have
Okay.
the dirty south,
Right.
you have different kinds. You have the crunk, it just depends. You have the old school, you have the drill, you also have the cloud music, you have the gangster rap. I mean, it goes on and on. You have the grime, you have the rap rock, I mean, you have the chopped, and then also the screwed. These are different genres, but yet they all fall up under the aspect of hip hop, and then each
Yeah.
one of them bring
Now
about their own
now the
sound.
hip hop, when we say hip hop, not to confuse hip hop and rap, hip hop is the whole as a whole, hip hop is the dancing, the fashion,
The culture, I would
the
say.
culture, the
Yeah.
whole culture, the
Right.
DJing,
Right, right, right.
and the graffiti. That
Uh-huh.
was hip hop.
Right.
Rap was the lyrical part of it.
Right, right.
So I want to distinguish that. And I know rap became regional. So what is happening is it's growing as
Mhm.
they're using it, and they're sort of like R&B, where you say you got funk,
Mhm, mhm.
you got this type of music, you got Earth, Wind and Fire wasn't the same as Parliament Funkadelic
Right.
and things like that. But they didn't just label it. They did say you had funk because they wanted to distinguish themselves on what they were doing. Now, where hip hop is so regional,
Mhm.
because you had gangster rap in the East and you had gangster rap in the West, but the gangster rap in the West is what took over
Mhm.
that style or what they were talking about.
Right.
It was more formidable in the industry than gangster rap in the East.
Mhm.
They didn't so much label it that, they just was rap and
Mhm.
doing things like that. And I think all of these crunk and all these things like that, they started coming about, later nuances of somebody saying, well, this is different. This is different. But it's the rap music. And as a whole, why did rap influence our people more than jazz, more than R&B
Mhm.
and whatnot, and the blues?
Yeah.
I mean, we liked it because see, the blues wasn't targeted for young people.
Mhm.
Jazz wasn't targeted for young people. Those
Right.
were
Right.
older people. R&B wasn't targeted, even though you may have had an artist here and there that was young,
Right. Right.
but they were trying to target older people. Like,
Mhm.
even though young people might say, yeah, I like the Jackson 5,
Right.
but it was for the older people. Michael Jackson sang one of Smokey Robinson songs,
Mhm.
and it's like he had older people around him
Mhm.
when they first went to Motown, the Jackson 5, they were older people helping them create their sound.
Right. Right.
Where rap was totally independent of people.
Mhm.
They sampled people, sampling became out later, but they were using instrumental
Mhm.
hooks, the DJs were, to make instrumentals out of songs that was already out,
Mhm.
and people would just rap over it.
I think also that I want to add to that is this culture of music. It spoke to our social ills. You see, a lot of music talks about, for the most part, a lot of the R&B talked about love. You know what I'm saying, and getting with a woman, and someone was the apple of one's eyes, and all fine. But a lot of the rap hip hop artists, they started dealing with the social ills that we face as a people. And at one time, that was a anathema. You didn't do that in music. But a lot of the artists start talking about police brutality. They start talking about economic injustices. They started talking about black on black crime, white on black crime. And they went across the spectrum about living in the ghetto, living in the hood. And so I think that was a boost that a lot of other music industries and the genres of music didn't address,
Right.
didn't deal with.
And now that's what we're getting into when I said it was the grassroots was like in the streets with the kids,
Hmm.
because no one was telling people what you could talk about and what you couldn't talk about.
Hmm.
Um, Rap was something new and it came on the scene and it was like, okay, wow, these kids are good. They can rhyme. And then it was the first raps was coming out. I call them opera type rap. It was me, 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 me. I'm this, I'm that. The bombastic. I'm the
Yeah.
ladies' man, and I could do this, and I
Right.
could da da. Then it started to change,
Mm.
and then it changed to it matured.
Okay.
Basically, all it did was mature.
Uh-huh.
And even though when I'm saying it matured, I'm saying the music matured, the subject matter matured, intellectually, the creativity matured, but they were still younger people delivering the message.
Hmm.
And they were delivering the message about, like you said, about the streets.
Hmm.
Now I remember something that happened with Marvin Gaye started doing this in the early 70s. He came out with City Blues, things like that.
Right.
And he started talking about what was happening in the world. It's far too many of us dying, things like that. Stevie Wonder started becoming more in that aspect also. That was a slight movement in R&B where people started talking politically conscious things that was
Right.
happening. But those were adults talking about their perspectives and
Right.
over a melody or whatever.
Right.
With rap, it was more in your face,
Hmm.
you know, hard lyrics, hard beats. You could dance to it, you could do all of this stuff, but it was kids reporting to you how they felt or how they saw the world from their viewpoint.
Yes.
The people that were buying the records were kids.
Hmm.
Mostly the hip hop generation was the kids. So, and I think that's why the influence that it has is because when R&B was coming out, you were basically already a mature and adult. So people wasn't teaching you or
Right.
molding you. They may teach you something, but they're not molding you into who you are. And I think when hip hop hit, it started creating lanes for you. And you say, well, this is the lane I'm going to go into.
Hmm.
And you're in that that intricate moment of being becoming an adult and trying to figure out what you want to do, and then you have something that's helping to steer you in a direction and giving you lanes and avenues to go through.
That's true. That's true. And as I look at it now and reflect on 50 years of
Mhm.
celebrating the hip hop movement, I know there's a lot of things that come out of that, especially when you talk about groups that were conscious, if you will, Public Enemy and a lot of other groups that wanted to feed us knowledge and feed our intellect and feed our soul and feed our mind. I think that was a beautiful thing. But then something happened, not all across the board, but in certain segments of the rap industry that a lot of people are afraid to talk about. Now, we're not here today to talk about one genre only, but we must be honest about some of it when it comes to the European influence, where they've come in and they've taken our artists and then they've turned some of our artists into monsters, if you will, not literally, but verbally monsters, where they degrade our women, they degrade our men. They talk about things that a lot of us we hear it and we act as if it's not happening. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of us shy away from, and we must talk about that, because a lot of them, this is what they do. They make, and a lot of them aren't even as gangster as they want to be, but
Right.
this is what they're getting paid to do.
Yeah, that's a persona. Now,
Yeah.
now you said something key right there. You said pay to do. Um, these artists, we must understand a lot of these kids are coming from situations and circumstances where they are looking for money. Why are they into hip hop? Why are they into the rap music? Why do they want to become a rapper? A lot of times, probably 90% of those people, or probably maybe more than that, will say, I need the money.
Hmm.
I'm doing it for money. This is something I don't have to go to school and get a degree.
Hmm.
I don't have to put in years of college or anything like that, or years of study. You could drop out of high school.
Right.
I
Right.
think Jay-Z, he dropped out of high school. A lot of these, Nas or whoever artists you can name, many of them didn't even have to finish high school.
Right.
And
Right.
so this is something that's easy for them to do,
Hmm.
and they're speaking their mind. And if people like it, they become what they think is rich, and they're really making more money for other people than for themselves. But if that's their reason for doing rap,
Okay.
then they're gonna also do whatever is the more
Exactly.
lucrative
Hmm.
form. If gangster rap is out and that's what's selling,
Hmm.
because they are making money off of their sales,
Hmm.
you're gonna do what's selling.
Hmm.
You're not gonna say, "Well, I'm not gonna do that. I'm in it to make money." But it's the pot of gold. I mean, you're gonna sacrifice your soul, sell your soul, or sell the soul of your people for a pot of gold,
Hmm.
or you're gonna say, "Well, I'm gonna do something I think that's gonna help our people." And how many young people think like that?
Right. Right.
In
Right.
that aspect. So
Right.
this is like a different perspective on rap music. Basically, as a whole, has been detrimental to our
Mm.
people now, the way
Okay.
it is now.
Okay.
It's more detrimental to the generation
Okay.
now, like you're talking about the
Okay.
sex and the drugs and the gangster, the killing, and
Yeah, yeah. I looked at a different website, and this website is out of Los Angeles, California. And what they did was they took 15 albums, and these are the explicit lyrics. And what they did was they counted the times that they use derogatory words. I can't say them on the air, but we know what they are.
yeah,
And it ended up, they took 15 albums, man, and they came up with 31,000
right.
31,000 words that we can't repeat on air. And I'm going to ask you a question, and you probably know. If not, most of us are kind of in the ballpark. Do you know what the number one word that was used for the most part in most of these songs?
I would probably say the N word.
Exactly. You moved to the head of the class. It was it was the N word, you see. So a lot of this, we have to tackle this head on. We can't run from this. And so when you see children growing up, they think that this is normal. So when they grow up and they want to rap, what do you think they're going to do when they put their lyrics down? What are they going to say?
They're gonna
Of
imitate.
course.
It's gonna be imitation.
Of course.
Um, And with that being said, you brought up another point.
Mhm.
Aristotle said something about he had a theory on what he called mimesis,
Mhm.
and mimesis is actually imitation.
Okay.
And his theory or his frame of thought was that in the arts or life period, man doesn't create anything new.
Okay.
That he mimics everything that he creates is a mimic or imitation of things that's already there, or that he's seen or have knowledge of or have read or whatever. So when you're creating art, like, you do plays,
Mhm. Mhm.
and under that theory, is that you creating a play, you think this is your creation, but you're just taking pieces
Mhm.
of what you already have seen, read about, or heard, and you
Mhm.
may be creating characters off of people you have seen and say, okay,
Right.
this person is, I'm going to create this type of character
Right.
because you have a bunch of different characters in the play. You have one person that may be an angry woman. You're going to think about an angry woman that you have met or heard about or seen on TV or seen in somebody's art or personally and say, okay, this is how an angry woman acts. This is the Aristotelian mimesis
Okay.
uh, perspective on that. Now, also, what you have is you have anti-mimesis theory where they
Mhm.
say that no, one is saying art imitates life, and one is saying life imitates art.
Okay.
So hip hop, we're saying actually both is
Mhm.
happening in hip hop because you said the kids are going to see or listen and how they're going to act. So they're listening to an artist and they're listening to this rap or this gangster rap or this whatever, and then they're going to start imitating what they're
Exactly.
saying. So
Right.
that's the art influencing us.
Mm.
Or some people are saying the other end of that is saying that you are your influence is what creates the art. So you had rappers back in the day, and they were saying, "Well, you're glorifying gangster." The street life and all this gang stuff. And they say, no, I'm just reporting what I'm seeing. This is me reporting what's happening in the streets.
Mm. Mm.
So those are different ways of looking at it. Or is it art imitating life or life imitating art? Or does it have to not be either or and it's just a mixture?
Yeah, it's got to be a combination
Right.
because people do things for various reasons. But when you look at some of the lyrics to the not just gangster, but some of the lyrics that degrades your and my mothers and our grandparents and treat our women like female dogs. Okay, we cannot sit around and act like that's not going on. But see, what we've done is because some people, let me tell you this, brother Kevin,
Mhm.
some people they fall in love with the artist, and so they so infatuated with the artist that if the artist gives you some crap or some junk, they're gonna like the artist to the degree where they're gonna take up for the artist and blame everything else as to why the artist is doing what the artist is doing. When the artist is conscious enough to know that your mother and my mother are not female dogs, but yet
Right.
this is something that sells, this is something that they make money off of, and this is something that in a lot of their hearts they're posturing. They want to be. They're really not. A lot of them are not gangsters. And so when I watch MTV and other videos of these people glorifying this kind of lifestyle, because I'm so impressionable, then my mind is going to trigger to that. And so therefore, I'm going to look at that as is that something that I would want to aspire when it's not. And it's not all of it, but it's just a portion of it. And a lot of times when we have these discussions, a lot of people like to sweep this under the carpet as opposed to say, that's not something that's bad. That's
Right.
bad. And there's good rap. We can talk about the conscious rap, which is beautiful. But when we look at what's going on in many instances, man, you should hear, and I know you have, you should hear some of
Yeah.
this stuff.
Okay. Now let me add on with that. I'm gonna ask a question. It's
Okay.
a rhetorical question. If you give a pimp a platform
Mhm.
to write a song, write a play,
Uh-huh.
uh, write a movie,
Mhm.
whatever, you give a pimp a platform, what do you think you're gonna get from that?
Well, we know
It's
because
gonna
he's a
be
pimp.
basically derogatory towards women or,
Right, right, right.
sexualized or hustling or something like that. If a lot of these kids are coming up like that,
Hmm.
or this is the culture that they are living in the
Hmm.
ghettos, now where are they getting these artists from?
Hmm.
That's the thing. So if you're getting artists that's gang members,
Hmm.
what are you expecting them to talk about?
Hmm.
Let me say this.
Okay.
I used to be into the rap industry.
Okay.
I signed a couple of contracts. The first time I went in front of an A&R and a rap, a music company, I
Hmm.
was in California
Okay.
and I was in the military. And I had an older brother say, "Man, you good. We can do this." He said, "I want to be your producer." We did songs, we did demo tapes. He went up to a record company and he said, "Check this out." The guy said, "Yeah, man, you good. You got skills, but your subject matter is a problem. You got to talk about N's and B's and
What?
drinking 40s or something like that, or the gang life, because this is what's selling."
Okay.
So I had a choice
Okay.
and I chose life. That's not me. I don't,
Mm.
I'm not a ganger. And my thing is, how am I going to sit up and talk about or act like I am? I'm not an actor. I was more like the Public Enemy X Clan type
Okay.
person. person was telling me, okay, basically, if you want this money or you want to get signed, you got the skills, but we just need to change your subject.
Mm.
So a lot of these people are faced with this.
Mhm.
If they're in it to make money,
Right.
um, what do you think they're going to do? And then when they are given that platform, what do you think they're going to talk about?
Exactly.
What sales and what the record label is pumping them to sell, what the number one artist out there is talking about, because they want to be that number one artist. So a lot of them are not going to go against the grain of what's selling. But why is that grain out there to go against? Because at one time, we were able to put out whatever we wanted. That was what fashionable. If you look at the age limit, not limit, the age group of rappers when they were coming out, LL released his radio when he was 16.
Okay.
How much intellect does a 16-year-old have and influence? So a lot of these, they're in their late teens, early 20s, but at one time they were conscious, because that was the thing. It was that Generation X, that Malcolm X stuff, and everybody wanted to do that, and we were allowed to do that. And then when rap became a machine,
Okay.
they took over rap and said, no, we could use this as a tool, because it has that influence. Because at that time, those people had influence.
Right.
Everybody wanted to, the I Need Love or the Run DMC or whatever, or Public Enemy.
Right.
And it became a movement towards that. And what they did, they controlled it. They said, we got to take control of this, because it's going against the machine.
That's good.
And so they used rap as a tool. When they saw it was a formidable tool, then the industry took over.
Okay.
And then they started choking out those people that were talking about something conscious and positive. Then what they start pushing to the forefront was some of the artists that we love, even some of the Tupacs and Biggies and all these people. They wasn't talking about conscious. Now they have throw something in there to appease the people, but most of your songs are you talking about the gang life and the thug life, and I'm killing this, and then you're one of the best artists out there, and everybody knows you, everybody loves you, and then you will throw a little tidbit in there to appease the people, to say, yeah, well, I do have this type of, but mainly what you're talking about and what you're doing while you're talking is you're beefing and you're saying East Coast, West Coast, or I shoot you, or I do this to your woman, and all this. So that's what people gravitated to.
You said a lot, brother Kevin. You said a lot, and that's very true. It's awesome. And you said the industry, they injected some things into our people. And let me be quite clear as to what it was that they injected. They injected some of the most vulgar speech that you could imagine. Not only did they inject vulgar speech, it was foul, man. And not all of it, but a lot of it is foul. It's nasty. A lot of the speech is depraved. It's morally corrupt. And for us to sit here on a broadcast and to address this, it says a lot about us as men, because a lot of people are afraid to have these kinds of discussions. And all we're saying is people are going to do what they want to do. But this is where it is right now.
I'm gonna ask you this: were any of those words new words?
No, they weren't new words.
Was it new for? I'm like Dolomite, the movie.
Okay.
That I went to see that. I stumbled into a movie theater. I didn't know what it was. My parents didn't know I was there. I was a young kid, and I was seeing things. I was like, wow. My eyes was wide open. The things they were saying, the things they were doing, womanizing, and this, that, and the other. I was absorbing that as a young kid that was allowed to go into a movie theater, and but what made that mainstream? See, that those type of things were out. Even in hip hop, when I go back and I could talk about LL or the Run DMC or the Public Enemy era, there was also the 2 Live Crew era, but they wasn't pushed to the forefront. So now what happened is those things was around. It was people talking like that, but they became mainstream hip hop. So who controls the mainstream hip hop? Who's putting it out? Who gets to control what artist is going to be signed and who's not going to be signed? And they're going to go by the content. So what I'm saying is a design. This is design. So all this talk, you can hear kids talking like that all through in the 70s. You can hear them talking like that, but they wasn't putting it in songs. They wasn't being heard. They would talk like that. They would look at Playboy books. They would talk about doing things, and kids would act a certain way, but it wasn't being heard, and it wasn't meant to be heard by everybody. They was ashamed to be heard. You wouldn't talk like that in front of adults. Now it's like, that's the thing to do.
It is.
So if you telling women that, hey, talk about this and talk about that. It used to be a time when it was like that was unladylike.
Wow.
Now you had women like Lola Falana
Mm.
that was on stage and shaking her thing just like Beyonce does now.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't like Beyonce created this or Shakira created this.
Right.
That was happening back in the day with Lola Falana and all those people like that.
Mhm.
But then now it's like mainstream.
Yeah.
If you want to make it, you want to, shake it and do this.
And see, Kev, this is so powerful because what we're not saying is sometimes that kind of bombardment that keeps coming at us, it creates a standard of living.
Right.
And see, this is the part that I like to talk about. It creates a standard of living for us as a people. And that standard of living is not how most of us are. Most of us are not pimps. Most of us are not dope dealers. Most of us are not drug addicts. Most of us are not into that lifestyle. But if you didn't know any better and you see these things and you hear these things, this is why we even see each other like that. Right. A lot of us as African Americans, Africans who live in America, whatever you want to call ourselves, we actually have taken that mindset and we use that towards one another. This is why I would say I'll pop you with a gun and go, you know what brains are, because you're nothing to me, because all of my life I've been influenced, and that influence have played a great deal into my heart. And as opposed to me dealing with the reality, we try to blame other things, but the influence, and it's great influence, because some of the conscience brothers, some of the conscience sisters, they wake us up. Common, when back in the day, they wake us up, and that's beautiful. So all I'm saying is you've got to play both sides. You can't play one side of the record, not you literally, but you can't play one side of the record and not play the whole thing. So when we toss both sides, you have to decide, what is it that you're going to do? Are you going to glorify this yourself as a grown man? A lot of us are too old. First of all, we in our 70s and we still pop locking. I mean, come on, man. Let me give the number. You can give your statement. The number to call here is 361-405-6111. Again, 361-405-6111. We'd like to know what you think about a bad rap, and we really want to have some kind of dialogue and engagement with you. But go ahead, brother Kevin. You say something.
Now the age thing, like if you come up in the hip hop era, a lot of people don't leave the hip hop era. They do something in some form of fashion that's hip hop, whether it's rap or whether they may not be a dancer, they may open a club now. Okay. They still married to that hip hop. They may dress a certain way still. They may still try to dress a cool way. What everyone does in our culture, black people, we pretty cool with ours. We suave with ours, no matter what genre of music we listen to. But now, thinking back on something that you were saying, the influence and why are they able to influence our kids? Because they're mainstream. But why is the industry able to put them out? Is because we are buying the records. And I'm not saying me and you, it's not our age that they're targeting. They're targeting kids. So why are our kids even wanting to listen to that? Just like me as a grown man, I don't want to listen to it. It sounds like trash to me, right? But I'm a more mature person. I can't take a 40, 50-year-old mind and put it into an 18-year-old, 15, 16-year-old person and expect that to work like that. They have their own way. And I have the years of maturity to know that this is trash. To them, it has no consequence to it. Okay. Young people, if you think about when you was 15, 16, 17, 18, you wasn't out trying to educate the world. No. You was trying to chase a girl or whatever we were trying to do, hide and smoke or whatever we were doing. Many of us, I'm not talking about me and you just in particular, but many of us, when our mind is in a different place than trying to solve the world problems or solve our community problems or anything like that. So when you're given a mic or a platform to a person that's 18, it's very extraordinary what those people, Chuck D and Ez Clan and KRS-One, what they were doing, because they were young people mind. Yeah. A lot of them were reading or learning our history. So they were anomalies. When you talk about that. So now that's what I'm saying. Like we're expecting something. So that's more a reflection of our kids, because our kids are buying these records. Right. So if my kids is educated and they know trash when they see trash, then they're not going to go and mess with trash or be in a trash can. Yeah, but then a lot of kids don't care. A lot of kids don't have that though. A lot of kids. So we have to give it to them. Exactly. But they're not raised like that. They don't have the people like yourself and me and others. And then, because like you said, we haven't always been this way as well. So we want you to know, hey, we're still growing and progressing ourselves. But a lot of people who these children who are growing up, they're latchkey kids.
Okay, parents are trying to work or trying to make ends meet, or if they even have both parents, they're doing what they can, and it's like it's easy to get a hold of some things that are not good for you. And so this is what they have grown up on. So here we come talking about, kind of listen to the lyrics and make sure you don't disrespect your grandmother, blah blah blah. Don't disrespect your mama, a woman, or another man, and all that. And they hear that, but in their hearts, because you mentioned earlier, it's been hijacked to a certain degree. This is all they know. And so it's like we have to give them the opportunity to either snap out of it at a later age or die in it. And that's a sad.
Are those the two options?
Well, if they don't come out of it and they stay in it, then they leave this world, then what are we talking?
And I think it's a lot more that we have to do, because if it's not hip hop, it's going to be something else. It's going to be on TV. They're going to have movies, Snowfall or
exactly.
whatever. I don't even want to name some of these. But see, as adults, a lot of these adults is looking at this stuff because it's entertainment, seeing somebody selling drugs and shooting each other. So they're not just feeding it to us in rap. They're feeding it to us everywhere we look. If adults are sitting up there looking at it, and actually when you're looking at it, you're glorifying it because you're entertained by it. It was something that I have a friend, he was very religious, and another lady, very religious, but they were sharing videos of kids fighting and black adults fighting. And I have this thing where I say, I don't want to see black people fighting on video. I'm not entertained by that. I won't even entertain it. But I question them for posting it and sharing it, because they saying, look at this is crazy. And I'm saying, and I didn't get on them personally, but they felt it. I said, you could tell a lot by a person from what they're entertained by, especially if they supposed to be upstanding, religious, or whatever, and it's the same thing. So then I stopped getting those videos.
Okay.
So the thing is, if the kids are growing up in these households,
right,
why did these producers or record labels target that they're making a lot of money off these rappers, right? Because a lot of people are paying for it. To make them not make a lot of money off of it is to stop patronizing it. If it's a store opens up in your neighborhood, if it's a sex shop and they sell guns and they sell alcohol, just damn near everything that this rap industry is about now, sex, drugs, and guns and stuff. And if nobody patronizes it, what's going to happen to that shop?
It's going to close up eventually. It's going to go out of
and
business.
You got to make people see that it's not good for the community.
Well, I think you said something that was really important too, and that's that when we talk about the adults. Every time we do a broadcast, we may talk about a various subject matter, but most of this goes back to the adults, because I think in this culture and our context in which we live in, a lot of adults are not living or acting like adults. We still have a large numerical number, but yet our minds and our hearts are still back in the 70s or the 80s, or we're in our teens. And like you said, most of us adults are engaging in that. So it's not just the kids.
Right.
But it's us as parents, it's us as uncles and aunts, nieces and nephews, because we have bought into that whole culture as if that's a normal way of life when it really isn't. And this is why a lot of things happen to us, because this is how we're seen.
Right. And I think that it has to be something that builds, because a lot of those people that we're talking about that's adults now, a lot of them grew up in the hip hop. And a lot of and it's like you were talking about the different avenues of hip hop and the labels of hip hop at that time. You could tell a lot about a person from the type of hip hop that they may have grew up on, or the type of music that they may have grew up on. A lot of times, if you're listening to gangster rap, I could look at somebody now and pretty much tell that's the what you've been cultivated on.
What do I listen to then? What I listen to?
Well, now let me say this too, because a lot of us have been forced to change. So, but I'm saying mostly because we can change. Just because you grew up on it don't mean that you change.
Right.
Something, a light could come on somewhere, or something could happen in our life to say, you know what, I need to get serious about life. But some of us never had that light. But I'm saying it's not like when you have that light, it's not like you're gonna come from listening to a Public Enemy or Boogie Down or Poor Righteous Teachers and then just go the other way. Because once that light has been instilled in you, you're the only one that's gonna make it go dark, and it's gonna be hard for you to go dark.
That's true. And see, the thing of it is we have to look at what does it do to our communities? And we always talking about ways to uplift the community, things to do to help our societies become better. But yet, when you look at a lot of this, it brings our community and our society down because of the messaging that it gives. Like we said earlier, it glorifies violence.
Right.
Instead of talking it out, just because you looked at me a certain way, I'm gonna call you an N, and I want to do something to you just because you're staring at me. And a lot of that is because of what's in my heart. Because normal people don't do that.
Right.
When you look at a person, you say, "Hey, what's happening?" They'll tell you. But then the first thing I want to do is run to my car and get my gat because you dissing me. Well,
Right.
where did all that come from, though?
Well, and that's the question. Is that coming from the music, or is the music a reflection of what's coming from the neighborhood?
Yeah, and it's like we mentioned earlier. It's part and parcel of both.
Right.
It really is.
So part of it is magnified and glorified and resold to us to
Mhm.
be more influential.
Mhm.
The N word has been used. I mean, I remember Richard Pryor used to use that on his comedy all the time.
Mhm.
Bad, vulgarity, everything.
Mhm.
But then I listen to old people that used to listen to Richard Pryor, and then they listen to rap and say, "Oh, y'all listen, this N word." And it's like, but it was funny when Rich was saying it.
Mhm.
So why is that funny then, and now it's not funny now?
Because of self-righteousness. When we
Right.
get older, some of us become
Right.
self-righteous.
So many of us are not the ones that's purchasing hip hop or
Right.
buying hip hop records. These kids, and they're not looking at things like that.
Mhm.
So it's easy from a mature mind to
Mhm.
sit back and look at what's wrong
Mhm.
for kids, but it's harder for kids at
Yeah.
an immature mind to
Yeah.
see that this stuff is really not good for us.
And it could make us hate one another. I mean,
Right.
it could make us hate the very fact that we look alike. When
Yeah,
every time you look around, we're talking about one another, or we're out to get one another, or everyone's out to get us, or we got to make sure we get the upper hand on the next man. This is insane,
It's
man.
predatory. It makes it like the whole gang situation is predatory. I remember when I was young, I used to listen to Run DMC. I wasn't really into the gang, it was before gangster rap, right? And I remember Run DMC was having a concert at Los Angeles,
Mhm.
and a fight broke out. It
Mm.
got violent, and they were blaming the first thing they were blaming was the rappers. And I remember them sitting at the press conference. They say, "No, there's a problem here in LA. They got a gang problem here,
Mhm.
and this is just something that brought those different people together."
Mhm.
So actually, it was a problem before rap music.
Mhm.
Rap music is being used as a tool
Mhm.
to magnify it and glorify it and help it to spread and have more influence.
Mhm.
So that's just media.
Right, right, right. It's just like you mentioned in movies. When we
Right.
look at movies, the movies that we've seen, all of them haven't been movies that have been about sanctity of life and all of that.
Right.
We've seen movies since we were little boys. That displayed us as who we are not. And so, but we fall in love with that character, you see. So every time that person plays in a movie, we run to see them. And we talked about it before on the broadcast, how we actually fall in love as if we know that person. And so
Right.
if that person does something that's debauched, instead of saying that's wrong, like Richard Pryor, yeah, just because he did it doesn't mean it was right.
Right.
But because we fall in love with him, we fall in love with all these artists, we begin to we cape for them, we take up for them, we make excuses for them, and we got to come to some kind of realization of, I mean, I love you, brother, but if you call somebody something, I'm gonna check you in love and say, "Kid, why are you doing that?" At
Right.
least because
Right.
that's what I'm supposed to do. And you would do me the same way. But a lot of us, when you call someone something, we stand around like that's what you or you ain't gonna
Oh, it's funny.
yeah,
It's
you ain't
funny.
gonna check that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know what
and
I'm
it's
saying?
funny, man. You start this person talk about this, well, this nappy headed Bob, and they think it's funny.
Well, I definitely just thought about this one time. You were telling me, you can't go into details, but you said you were embarrassed. You took your mother
Oh
to a
yeah,
comedy show. And
yeah.
you
It's,
took,
it's
what happened?
actually a poetry show.
Okay.
So and when I sat there and I looked at the poetry
Mm,
on it, I was like, man, this is pretty good. The
okay.
atmosphere was nice. People
Yeah.
saying poems. They were saying powerful things. It
Yeah.
was for older people. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna tell my mom and sister about it. Nice atmosphere. They came
Mhm.
the next time they had the show, and it was totally different.
What do
It
you
was
mean? It's
sex
different?
laden and
Mm.
explicit and vulgar. And I'm sitting there like, I don't believe this. And they probably looking at me like, this is what you brought me to. This is what you wanted me to see.
Wow.
It's like you plan to take them to see Maxwell,
Mhm.
and then they get this gangster rapper
Mhm.
and, Nicki Minaj and all
Right,
this talking
right.
about they WAP and all this stuff. And it's like, whoa, this ain't the same show.
Right.
But this is something, I mean, it flooded into poetry because I was thinking, well, poetry is different.
Right.
But it's just what people are comfortable
Mhm.
saying publicly
Mhm.
now. That's the thing, because things could be said in private.
Mm.
And what R&B did, they just said it in a smooth way. They were still talking
Oh,
about
yeah,
sex and all this stuff. They
Stealing
weren't talking about
somebody's woman.
killing,
Right.
killing somebody. They were talking about, all of this stuff. Marvin Gaye's Sexual Healing, but that's
Yeah.
a song that come on, even old people that vibe to it. They know what he's talking about.
Right.
But when now it's just like, man, I'm gonna say it like this, and I'm gonna put it out there like this, and people try to push the envelope to say as much as they can and see how far they could go, and then it normalizes it.
Right. And the people that's over all of this, these people basically, regardless of what aspect of life we're talking about, be it music, be it comes to the movies, be it sports, when they pay, we're basically going to sell our soul to the highest bidder. And for the most part, some of us still have standards and morals and says, I won't do that. But the majority of us, we say that's our job, because if you ask most people that do this, they'll tell you, I'm an actor, but I'm really not like that. And maybe not when they're off the screen. But the influence is what we're talking about.
The script you're asking. Now, some of them I heard, like actors, we say that they're like, well, I got to feed myself. I got bills. I got da. Now, it's like, well, it's hard to, but see, and my thing is, okay, you blame them for making it. Mm-hmm. If they don't make it, somebody else going to pick up that script. The script is calling for a black person to play something, whatever. And you say, man, look at this Uncle Tom doing this, right? And then if they don't do it, somebody else gonna do it, and it's still being fair to our people. But the thing is, okay, let me take this script. You're gonna pay me so much money. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna support it. And if our people didn't support it, they're gonna stop making those roles. See, that's what I'm saying. It also comes, but see, for us, we're not the ones that buy rap, mm-hmm. right? So we're talking to 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, and trying to tell them to think like us. But the thing is, maybe if we can control the industry, and maybe part of the problem is we need to take over the industry, or not take it over, but create our own, because those people, like you say, there's other artists out there that don't do this.
Right.
But they're not selling like the other ones, and they're struggling sometimes. And they have to fight with each other because it's only a few lanes for them. Well, it's like 100 lanes for these other people. So if we have more record companies or start getting into that, we got a problem with it, solve the problem. They putting that stuff out. Okay, I'm putting out artists, do the same thing. I'm choking all that gangster stuff.
Yeah, I hear you.
And see, this is something that the intellectual, the more mature minds we thinking in the chessboard. Control it. Have more control over what our kids are going to put out.
And you're right, because when you look at, even when it comes to the sporting world, in football, basketball, baseball, especially football and basketball and boxing, we make up the majority of the people that do that. And since Jackie Robinson in the early days of old, we have people now that are making money hand over fist. But we still complain if I'm an analyst on the show and they can me or they don't give me the contract, then I'm crying that they have been unfair to me, when you have all these other people who have been doing this for so many years, but we don't have a platform where if the European cans me, I can go to a brother who has the same type of platform and say, hey, I'm gonna work for this person here, because they're not gonna can me because of something that was very petty. But we're still complaining about the very same thing. So ownership and control is right. But when will we get those kinds of people who will go into that, like you're talking, that says, okay,
when we create them as kids, when we start influencing our kids to see things for what they are, taking control of our own youth, creating a mindset. The mindset of those NFL, NBA, whatever sports players is not what we need them to be, because what they're doing, they need to make their money. They make money. They've been their dream, and they don't even have the wherewithal to say, this is something wrong. We're going to band together and we're going to lock things up.
So after all these years, you're telling me that all these years with all these millionaires and billionaires, it's not that many billionaires, but millionaires and people who make 6 and 7 digit figures, that's in the entertainment and the sports and all this genre. You mean to tell me that they're not strong enough to sit back and say, hey, we have to control all of this which we're putting out?
I'm telling you that in every profession.
Okay.
Our teachers.
Okay.
Our teachers that have been professors and stuff, if they're not trying to have their own schools, there has to be an end game. I could go work for somebody for now, but in the end, we should be wanting to have our own stuff, period.
Yes, sir.
And I don't care if you're a scientist, I don't care if you're a doctor, a dentist, you should be thinking of helping your people and pulling together for your people. So I'm saying, I don't want to just put it on the entertainers and the sports figures, because those are uneducated people. Most of them, they didn't finish the college because they came out.
But they know that racism is going on.
But see, they're not educated like that. See, I knew that racism was going on when I was 18.
Okay.
But I didn't have any ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what Malcolm X and Marcus Garvey. I didn't have the way that the perspectives to look at things and to learn things. That comes with maturity. I could be angry about it, but I didn't know how to fight it or do anything about it. Okay. So I was only thing I knew to fight it. You did this or you did this. I was angry,
right,
and I was ready to jump on somebody, and that's playing into their.
Okay, so you didn't have the intellect as a group
because I didn't have no library. I didn't have any knowledge of I didn't even know what Malcolm X was saying in his speeches because it wasn't made ready for me. And then I started accumulating that stuff. When I heard rap music, I started hearing names I never heard before because I liked this artist and they was talking about Patrice Lumumba and Stevie Biko. And I'm like, who the hell are they people?
Right,
and I started looking them up. And I'm like, see, they opened my mind.
Right.
So that's when it was an influence. The music led me to where I am now. Now, I'm not going to just put it on athletes, entertainers, because some of them never had that influence, but we have to create that.
That's good. That's good. I know that right now, a lot of people are just running as far as they can from the east to the west when it comes to this discussion. But yet the very things that we're talking about, they're necessary because we're being affected in every aspect of life when we talk about a bad route. We're being seen as people that we're really not. And we see each other as people that we're not. And a lot of it has to do with the influence.
And that is great, man, because you think of it like this. If they are putting us out and they know that you're going to act a clown and a fool, they know that this is mainstream. It's basically saying, yeah, look at these people. It's just like we saying, but they're behind and they paying you.
Yeah.
They paying you, whatever you making and you putting all these gold fronts in and talking about women like this and talking about shooting down another brother.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, and let the world see, because they're not vested in our culture. Right. They're not vested in that artist. They only vested in the money that the artist is making. And it's killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
It's killing the youth and it's letting the world see that they're who we thought they were, because all they doing is taking. It's like when they had something happen, they had a movie, the cameraman out and the news reporter there, and we say, man, they found the most ratchet person. She got this on her head and she got rollers and she can't speak a lick of correct English, right. And they put that person. It's like, and it's basically saying, look at them.
But then I agree with you 100%. But I also want to add to that. But we have to continue to bring awareness to it. Right. No, we can't stick our heads in sand as if this is not going on. And that's the part that I'm saying that like we're doing now. And to whoever it affects, that's a good thing. But we got to have more of these kind of people do anything because no one could make us do it when we had our mind set. To have these types of discussions, I think, is the beginning point of saying, hey, let's at least look at it. We have to start somewhere. We can't just say not you, but we can't say all is lost. It is the way it is and just leave it as such. And, one day it's going to get better. No, we have to have these kinds of discussions. We really do. We have to challenge one another. We have to come together and, we have to disagree. Sometimes we have to agree. And sometimes we have to stop being so, butt bent because what you're saying is really affecting my livelihood as opposed to me looking at, well, what are you doing to make that? And who are you damaging? And most of these people have enough money as it were right now, as far as they can live until they die. They don't need to work a job, right. But they're still the main ones, many of them, putting out this filth in which that.
So when does enough money become enough money?
Well, when you don't have to work again, when you can invest money.
So then we should have no Bill Gates or no Jay-Z's or Oprah's, because $1 billion, you don't have to work again if you got 2 million. So, but then it's that greed of the money.
There it is.
And then what you're doing, you should start doing, you should start maturing. I seen a maturity in Jay-Z. He was a street hustler and he rapped about the street hustle game. Then he started maturing, and then his game started to change, and then he started changing, not just in this, because this platform is going to die for you after you get a certain age, but then you start taking your money, just like our sports people should be thinking, things like that. After a while, I'm not going to be able to run the ball and shoot the ball, so I got to invest in other things, but many of them don't reach that maturity, and then they're out there broke, and you're going to hear about them after 5 years after being in the NFL or the NBA, and they're out there panhandling,
Yeah.
peddling or whatever, selling drugs or getting busted doing something stupid.
Yeah.
And so the maturity of the mindset, you have a larvae, a young fool that became an old fool that's going to be, seen as a fool, period. Some people change
Mhm.
and they do something with their, and maybe they just grow up and they get conscious or they hear something that sparks them. We have to do things that spark. We have
Yeah.
to set sparks, and I'm talking about as adults,
Yeah,
period.
yeah, and you're on the same page I'm on, because that's what it's got to be about. We cannot allow the youth to lead us. And in
Right.
many instances, when we have these discussions, we go to the youth for the answers. Well, they're not mature. They're still learning. They're still growing. But we've been around for a while, and a lot of us, we've come up, as they say, the rough side of the mountain. But we're still not trying to look back and make it a lot easier for those who come behind us.
So as a young person, young man, young woman, and they want to become rich, and they see an avenue, they see something that they think they could do to become rich. Who's giving them opportunities? Adults are giving them the opportunities. They're signing them and saying, I could help you become what you want to do.
Mhm.
But what are we doing to help them become rich?
Hmm.
That's
Well,
something we got to look at,
yeah.
because they had the dreams. They
Mhm.
want, I mean, if that's what they want the fame and fortune. What do we do
Mhm.
to help them become rich?
Yeah.
What are we doing as a people, as a culture, to
Yeah.
help them become rich?
Mm.
If I have to go work for this company and then change things on my own after I put some eggs in a basket,
Right.
then why is my people, why are we not helping us become rich? Why are
Yeah.
we not targeting? Why are we not saying, you know what, hey, this is somebody that's doing this type of positive thing, this
Mm.
rap or
Mm.
whatever, even
Mhm.
though and support what they're doing or
Mm.
put money behind it? Or why are we not lashing out at those companies that's putting out gangster rap?
Because we're still into that ideal of individualism that we talked about.
Right.
And it's all about me. It's all about myself. It's all about me and mine. And after that, you know what they say with the rest of us.
Right.
It's
So
that.
if Fox is putting out Snowfall or whatever, and we don't like the way that we're being depicted, or we're tired of these, the way they're showing us, and we say, I'm gonna stop watching your
Yeah, but
channel.
yeah,
But
we say that though, bro. That's what I'm
yeah,
saying. We say that, and it's hard, like we mentioned, because a lot of people, and this is what I learned. One day we'll do a broadcast on what life has taught us. And
uh-huh.
and one of the things I want to say back even then, but now, is that everybody talks a good game, but we're not about what we talk about. Many of us go to religious affiliations, and we know that most of these religious affiliations have different principles that are decent, but we're not following those principles because we're not willing to take the responsibility as adults and do what we're supposed to
Well,
do to help
the
these people.
question again is, why are we at that um organization or whatever?
Well,
Why?
that
Because is it
tradition.
because, okay, or tradition, or we trying to make it to heaven or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever?
because
Now, but see what should be happening, and I appreciate my brother earlier that I was talking to. He's talking about those leaders or these religious groups or whatever, and them not speaking up and doing the things that they're watching, they're letting happen and not wanting to tackle those
Mhm,
things.
mhm,
But if the person, just like the kid that just want to do music to make money, then they
mhm.
don't care what it's going to take to make money.
Right.
If you're going to an organization, a mosque or a church
Mhm.
or temple to make it to heaven yourself, and you ain't, but see, those places should be teaching you to get out and
Mhm.
to make it to do what you want to do, because you should be conscious of what's happening around you and wanting to get your hands dirty.
Mhm.
Like I don't want to see a construction worker and
Mhm.
his hands is clean. You ain't doing no work, bro. We got to do work. We got to sit up here and talk about the next thing we're gonna do, the next move we got to make,
Yeah.
the next time we try to help people, or how
Right.
can we help people in a different way, or what kind, whatever. But if you're not trying to do that, now you want to do it just be on camera and crack jokes, then
Yep.
it's not, you ain't getting dirty.
Well, see, and what's the enigma is for me, and what I don't get is, back in the day, we have always had racist ideologies in this country. We've always had it, so there's nothing new. But it appears that back in the day, whether you talk about the church way back then, or the SNCC, or whatever organization it was, the Nation of Islam, NAACP, back then, they bonded together for a common cause. But now we're having it worse than it was back then, and we're not bonding together. For the most, we're kind of pulling apart because of the things that we're talking about now. And I think we need to look at why is that then?
Well, the appearance, like you're saying, it's worse now. The appearance to the people that's coming up, it's not worse. They thinking things have gotten better. Because back in the days, if I look at Sammy Davis Jr. or Sam Cooke, they was broke,
Hmm.
and you could look at Marvin Gaye before he died. He didn't have a lot of money. So they're looking like they stepped up their game and now they're getting money, they're getting paid.
Mhm.
It's more of us making millions of dollars. But so your individual condition has changed, or yeah, but they're paying you to poison our people,
Right,
you know.
right.
But in actuality, the same things are happening.
Mhm,
Our people think that we're more advanced or whatever,
mhm.
but actually you know, that goes here and there. What has happened, what's happening now is some of the same things that's
What's happening?
happening then. So
Exactly.
these a lot of these people that we're trying to reach is saying that things are not better. How can you tell them that when they've gotten better
Mhm.
from when they was 14, 15, and now they could buy a car, they could buy a Mercedes, they could buy their mama's a house, and that's the most important things to them.
Yeah, and that's true, and that's a mindset that has been altered, you
Right.
know, and a lot of our minds have been altered in a lot of areas of life. But when you talk about Black people living in the United States of America, you know, you can say all we want to is that we've gotten better, but when you look at the condition of our people, we've regressed. Because if you look at progress, and if you go back into the 1800s and look at how much we own then, as opposed to now, then you would see, when you look at the billionaires, when you look at the millionaires, when you look at all of the aspects of life and economics, you see that we're still at the bottom of the rung. In fact, it's more of us now than it was then. So
Okay. Now you're saying that, and remember, going back to the hip hop thing, what's the age group of these
these
kids?
teenagers,
And when you were 18, 19, were you thinking about, you know, black people as a whole, or were you more myopic about what was going on around you? Were you worrying about the 1800s where black people was at, um, as opposed to where they was at in the 40s and the 60s and things like that? Or were you worried about your, you know, what you gonna hang out with your friends the next night and what you gonna do
yeah,
and what songs came out? Were you
right.
sitting up there? Were you worried about the books you want to read, or were you
Mhm.
worried the songs you want to listen to?
I think it's the one that you said that shows, as a young person, the ignorance. But I'm not talking to them. I'm talking
Okay,
about
so
those of us who are older.
so
Because
now what are we going to do? See if is so what are we going to do? Because I mean, we haven't did our own schools. We haven't created our own hospitals.
Mhm.
We haven't done anything as a people. We sit up and complain about the grocery store prices, but as soon as someone black opens up something, we don't
Exactly.
patronize it. So how can we even get our group
Mhm.
to do things that's going to galvanize us
Right.
and strengthen us in society?
Yeah, so because and then you some of the same thing I'm saying, because back in the day during segregation, we had our own whatever.
We had to.
We had to, but now we've given everything away because we want to be like other people, and this is how we're in the predicament that we're in now. Many of us are, and
Yeah.
because of the mindset, it goes back to the adults. You know, it goes back to us adults who, yeah, back in the day we weren't thinking like we're thinking now. So to whom much is given, much is required. Those of us who are adults, we should be at least having these kinds of discussions. We're going to change the world overnight, but a lot of us aren't interested in having these discussions because we're too busy watching, as you mentioned earlier, something on TV and Netflix, or something,
Yeah.
that's going on. So it goes to show that even we're still young in the mind. Many of us, very young.
Yeah, we're very immature as a people. You know,
Mhm.
we have some mature adults. We have people that's talking this way. We have people that was talking this way back in the 60s. We
Mhm.
had Angela Davis and them, you know, that was talking this way, but it wasn't comfortable. You
Mhm.
know, that wasn't comfortable. We just want to be comfortable. We don't want to do too much. We want to get comfortable.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and that's a problem. And then the result of that is you got our kids running around doing their own thing,
yeah.
how they want to do it, and then we complaining about how they doing it when somebody else is helping them to do it,
Right.
controlling them to do it, paying them to do it.
Mhm.
When we can't pay them anything to become a professional,
Right.
it's no incentive to say, well, I'm gonna finish high school and I'm gonna go to college, and then that's a struggle. Then I might get hired to do something when it's the unemployment for black people is higher than anyone else in this country,
Yeah.
and it has been doubled that of white people all
All
along
over.
from since they started keeping it in the 1940s.
Right.
So it's sometimes triple. So when
Mhm.
we are looking at dire future going one road and we
Mhm.
got a quick and easy road, just
Right.
like selling drugs, anything, I
Yeah.
see that. I see somebody, they started doing it last year and
And
look
now
at
look
them
at it.
now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this person is going to school, and this person is trying to get their bachelor's degree, and their family is struggling and stuff, and
Mhm.
now they getting out, and it's hard for them to. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
designed for that. That
Yeah.
road of success should be harder,
Yeah.
or they make it look harder, or it is harder. But we have to choose that road, and we have to help make that road more easy.
And we're willing to take a chance to follow that path, knowing the consequences of if things don't pan out. Because everybody we see, they didn't get into the dope game or the drug game and became rich. A lot of our brothers and sisters are gone now. And
Right.
see, we don't talk about them as much. But I want to make a quick announcement before we leave. Next month, on the 7th of October, from 1 o'clock until 2 or 2:30, or however long we're going to go, the Ja and Kev show is going to be at 639 South W.W. White Road at a place called Fitness. Global Fitness.
Global
Fitness. And we're going to be remote. We're going to be live there. So you can come down, you can support us, you can come and work out, you can come and you can talk about the importance of staying fit, because a lot of us are leaving this earth because we're not taking care of ourselves. And so we're going to be there next month from 1 to maybe 2 or 2:30, but we're going to be at 639 South W.W. White Road at Global Fitness. So we want you all to come out. And if you can't come out, watch the broadcast.
Yeah, if you come out and you want to get on camera, you want to say something, we might entertain that.
Yeah.
Don't be coming out there with profanity and but So shout out to Glow.
Yeah. And this broadcast, man, is, I mean, we may not have 1 million subscribers, but I know a lot of it is based upon the information. But if we were up here using vulgarity, shaking our rumps and doing different things, we probably have more. But the point of the matter is we must always stay true to what our people need to hear and what our people need to know.
Right. And I appreciate everyone showing up, and hopefully we'll be able to have a better broadcast from y'all next week. Or next time we come on, because we ain't coming on next week, right?
No, we got 2 weeks.
All right.
Hotep, on behalf of Kev, this is Josh saying thank you for tuning in to the Ja and Kev Show. We see you all next month.
Wow.